දවස් 30ක්ම unlimited Netflix බලන්න. unlimited data pack එකක් මුළු පවුලටම unlimited fun එකක් අරගන්න. අදම active කරගන්න.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, a year of hope. As Sri Lanka hopes for a brand new beginning, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa calls for public positivity in 2021, while the Premier praises public support. No problem. Epidemiologist says virus under control in Sri Lanka with fatality rate on par with global rates.
Globally, for every million people, 9 people were dead because of COVID-19. And in our country, it is equal to the global figures.
Homegrown. Stock exchange chief says local investors will take a cue from last year in 2021 with increased participation.
Given the continued low interest rate environment that we have, it is likely that local investors will continue to invest in equities this year as well.
Total shutdown. Health officials closed down Kattankudi and 11 areas in Kalmune following a spike in new virus cases. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Friday, the 1st of January 2021.
Nava sunlight sakura. Then Dikukal pavathina sakura mal suandin.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and wish you all a very happy new year. I'm Dhammike Kanai. Now, countries bade goodbye to probably what had been the most challenging year the world had ever endured. Few nations were capable of putting on exuberant celebrations to mark the arrival of 2021, while others had to settle for more subdued ways to mark the new year. By and large, millions were forced into their homes owing to the unseen enemy, the COVID-19 virus. In Sri Lanka too, there was no difference, as health and safety guidelines in play ensured that any celebrations, religious or otherwise, were toned down.
It takes 26 hours for all time zones to reach the new year. The Pacific island nation of Samoa and Kiribati were the first places in the world to welcome 2021, leaving behind a year which was marked by the COVID-19 pandemic and its effect on society. They celebrated the end of 2020 at 3:30 p.m. Sri Lankan time yesterday. In the small island of Samoa, only 2 cases of COVID-19 were reported, and by the dawn of the new year, there were no infected people in the islands. Meanwhile, at New Zealand's Chatham Islands, the midnight hit its nearly 700 inhabitants, just 15 minutes after Samoa and Kiribati, making it the second earliest place on Earth. However, the first major city to welcome the new year was Auckland in New Zealand at 11 GMT, along with Fiji, Tonga and parts of Antarctica. Sydney was next in line for the New Year festivities and the firework display over the city's harbour, which is renowned across the world as one to watch. A fresh outbreak of COVID-19 has forced the 1 million Sydney residents who usually pack the area around the harbour to watch the spectacle on television. Following on from Oceania, Taiwan was one of the first countries in Asia to go into 2021, and the country did so with a fireworks extravaganza in Taipei. Large crowds took to the streets in the central Chinese city of Wuhan, celebrating the arrival of 2021 after a year marred by a deadly pandemic that killed thousands there. In the United Arab Emirates, masked crowds gathered along the Jumeirah beach and around downtown Dubai to watch the fireworks display, the Emirates' most famous landmark, the Burj Khalifa. In Paris, traditional fireworks centering the Eiffel Tower and the Arc de Triomphe did not take place yesterday. Police controls were in place across France to make sure everyone stuck to the curfew in order to control the spread of COVID-19. The New Year curfew came into effect on New Year's Eve. France has the highest COVID-19 cases count in Western Europe and the fifth largest in the world. Big Ben struck midnight as London welcomed the first year apart from Europe since 1972. There were largely empty streets in London where a highly contagious variant of the virus is rampaging and most people are under strict restrictions. However, fireworks were seen welcoming the new year.
Happy New Year for all the inhabitants of planet Earth.
The worst hit country due to the pandemic, the United States too celebrated the New Year at its iconic Times Square.
What a wonderful world.
In India, millions ushered in the new year with subdued celebrations at home because of night curfews, a ban on beach parties and restrictions on movement in major cities and towns after the new, more contagious variant of the coronavirus reached the country. Incidents of disregarding health and safety measures were also reported by the Indian media. Meanwhile, in Sri Lanka, the dawn of the new year was welcomed under health and safety guidelines. Buddhists gathered at temples across the island to engage in religious observances. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and many other politicians participated in religious ceremonies at the sacred site of Kataragama yesterday. Devotees also visited the temple of the sacred tooth relic in Kandy this morning and engaged in religious observances. People joined in worshipping the Kalutara Bodhi too in accordance with COVID-19 health guidelines. The Kalaniya Temple and the Gangarama Temple in Colombo were also visited by devotees in marking the arrival of the new year. The Christian community too engaged in religious observances at churches across the country with the dawn of the new year. Meanwhile, a Pirit chanting ceremony was worked off throughout the night to invoke blessings upon people for the new year. An alms-giving ceremony too was held at the Sinigama Devalaya this morning to mark the beginning of the new year.
Safeguard hand sanitizer නවතම නිෂ්පාදන පෙළ නීරෝගිමත් දිවියකට ලංකාවේ පළමු වරට හඳුන්වා දෙන මැලිබන් වෙජි ක්‍රැකර්
Crunchy veggie.
Now, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa called on the people to look forward to the new year with positivity, determination, commitment and cooperation, and expressed confidence that the country has the self-determination and courage to overcome its challenges. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa paid tribute to those manning the country's front line in its battle against COVID-19. And appreciated the unwavering support of the people in the government's efforts in restarting social and economic growth.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa in his New Year message urged the public to welcome 2021 with a positive attitude, determination and absolute commitment. The President added that despite the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, the government was able to lay the foundation for sustainable development while prioritizing national aspirations. Further, the President stated that the government is determined to further strengthen the steps that it has already taken in order to meet the expectations of the people in the new year, having been formed with the objective of securing people-centric development and to protect and preserve the country's national identity. He added that no room should be left for erosion of the confidence placed in the government, that it would always go against the country and the people's will. The head of state also stated that the prime responsibility of the government is to make development targets enshrined in the Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor policy framework a reality. To achieve this objective, the President added that it would be essential for the public and private sectors to work together as partners. In addition, the President stated that if each and every public servant properly performs the duties and responsibilities entrusted to them, it will not be a difficult task for the government to overcome any challenges it faces. The president added that he expects commitment from all public servants and expressed hope that all citizens will continue to faithfully serve the motherland. He also stated that he strongly believes that the country has the self-determination and courage to overcome challenges in the new year because of the confidence in that the government has built in the country by formulating and implementing plans with a clear perception. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa in his New Year's message called on the public to welcome the new year with renewed strength and determination. The Premier expressed gratitude for the unfaltering support the Sri Lankan people have instilled in the government to create an inclusive and safe Sri Lanka for all. He added that the government takes pride in being able to recommence solving public grievances and working towards the betterment of communities. The Prime Minister also appreciated the unwavering support of the people in the government's effort in restarting social and economic growth amidst a pandemic after years of political stagnation. The Premier also paid tribute to the efforts of the country's frontline healthcare workers and armed forces, police and security, government officials and staff, and volunteers in the country's fight against the pandemic. He added that the past year, albeit is a difficult one, has been a true test of the spirit of the people and called for optimism that brighter days are ahead of us. In conclusion, the Premier stated that although challenges remain great, Sri Lankan spirit and perseverance remains greater and will enable the country to overcome the global pandemic and inspire our future generations. Meanwhile, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, in his New Year message to the nation, expressed hope for a year of socio-economic development in a country free of COVID-19.
It might be a new year, but the old problems still linger, especially in the form of the COVID-19 pandemic. Sri Lanka's chief epidemiologist, Dr. Sudat Samaravira, reassures people of the island's control over the virus, saying that the country's fatality rate is on par with the global rate of 9 per a population of 1 million. 826 persons, meanwhile, were confirmed to have fully recovered from the virus today, marking the island's highest single-day number of recoveries. If and when a determination is made on a vaccine, Sri Lanka will receive 20% of doses via the global initiative, the COVAX facility. In the meantime, 4 more COVID-19 deaths were confirmed this evening, with 2 victims falling prey to COVID-19 pneumonia. The other 2, however, had been suffering from underlying conditions.
Sri Lanka's overall number of COVID-19 fatalities passed the 200 mark yesterday after 5 persons' deaths owing to the virus were confirmed, placing the total at 204. The youngest victim was a 46-year-old diabetic, while the other victims were of the ages 59, 61, 72 and 75. According to the Department of Government Information, all 5 victims had been suffering from underlying health conditions. And today, Sri Lanka confirmed 4 new COVID-19 deaths. 3 of the 4 victims are in their 60s, while the other is a 91-year-old. The causes of death of 2 victims were reported as COVID pneumonia, while the other victims had underlying health conditions. Meanwhile, so far today, 557 COVID-19 infections have been recorded in the island. However, 597 COVID-19 cases were confirmed from 17 districts yesterday, with the Colombo district accounting for 256 of the infections. In addition to this, 62 cases were confirmed from the Gampara district, 50 from Kegol, 36 from Kaludara, 34 from Ratnapura, 33 from Kandy and 20 from the Ampara district. There were also 38 infections confirmed across 9 other districts.
The 2020 year has ended with a major blow to the entire world because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Within that year, 81 million people got sick because of COVID-19, as well as 1.7 million people died because of COVID-19. When you compare with the population figures in the globe, for every million people, 522 people got COVID-19 during 2020. As well as in Southeast Asia region, the figure is very high. It is 5,859 cases per each million population. In Sri Lanka, for each million population in our country, 1,886 people got COVID-19 during 2020. When we compare the deaths globally, for every million people, 9 people were dead because of COVID-19 during 2020. When we come into our region, Southeast Asian region, the deaths were 89 per 1 million population, and in our country it is equal equal to the global figures, that is 9 people died out of each million population in 2020 because of COVID-19. We have that achieved this COVID-19 very good control during 2020, and during past couple of months all the efforts that has been success that we could control very well COVID-19. We hope that if the people adhere to the basic principles, we will be able to pursue this further and control COVID-19 very well in our country, and will have a normal life, including education of our children. This includes that we should stay at home as much as possible, should not come out to the society unless it is essential, and especially the elderly and people who are having chronic diseases should abstain coming from the society as much as possible. Whenever you are coming, should wear a face mask properly, should maintain the distance of 1 meter with each other, and also should clean your hands with soap and water frequently. If we do these things, we will be able to control COVID-19 during 2021. And also there will be hopes about the COVID vaccine, that several countries towards the end of 2020, including United States of America and the United Kingdom, has started giving the COVID vaccines to the people under emergency use. Sri Lanka also will be getting 20% of doses equal to 20% of our population free of charge through the COVAX facility when vaccines are available for our countries. We hope that it will be available during the first half of the year. The Health Ministry is evaluating all the vaccines available, their data, their safety data, and thinking and analyzing what will be the best vaccine for the country. When that vaccine is available, our country will obtain that.
In the meantime, Sri Lanka's active number of coronavirus cases currently stand at 7,497. This was aided by 826 patients being given the all-clear to leave hospital after recovering from the virus today. That puts the island's tally of recoveries at 36,155. In other developments, the Ministry of Health announced today that 2 more Ukrainian tourists tested positive for the coronavirus. This brings the total number of tourists who tested positive for the virus after arriving in the country on the 28th and 29th of December to 8.
The Kattankudi police area and 11 Grama Niladari divisions in Kalmune were placed under isolation today on the instructions of the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19. The decision was taken after a spike in virus cases was witnessed in the 2 areas.
The National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19 announced today that the Kattankudi police area and 11 Grama Niladari divisions in Kalmune have been placed under isolation with immediate effect. As such, all entry to and from the areas of Kalmune 1, Kalmune 1C, Kalmune 1E, Kalmune 2, Kalmune 2A, Kalmune B, Kalmune 3, Kalmune 3A, Kalmune Kudi 1, Kalmune Kudi 2, Kalmune Kudi 3 are prohibited. In addition to this, 7 police areas and 10 Grama Niladari divisions within Colombo continue to be under lockdown. The police areas of Mutual, Grand Pass, Wolfendal, Maligavatta, Dematagoda, Kotahena and Avissavella are still isolated. Meanwhile, the Grama Niladari divisions of Vanathamulla, Hatevatta, Ferguson Road South, Nazirvatta, Demalavatta, Galagedara East, Dematagoda, Veluvana Road, Halvsdorf West and Halvsdorf East in the Colombo district are also under isolation. What's more, 45 Grama Niladari divisions, 1 housing scheme and a police area across the districts of Kalutara, Kandy, Matara, Ratnapura, Monaragala, Trincomalee and Kegol continue to be isolated.
We will see you shortly after this break. Bear with us.
Ceylon Bank, the bank with a heart.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, CEO of the Colombo Stock Exchange, Rajiva Bandaranaike, says that he expects a host of changes in the market this year, with a major infrastructure development drive planned. Further, Bandaranaike expressed hope that property developers would take advantage of the REITs framework and contribute to more variety for investors. He also revealed that he expects local investors to show significant interest in the market this year, as was exhibited last year.
Given the continued low interest rate environment that we have presently, it is likely that local investors will continue to invest in shares, in equities this year as well. Consequently, we can also expect that the price indices will remain in positive territory as it moved last year. Of course, two things must happen. We need to get institutional and foreign investment into the market, and in order to sustain the market in the longer term. And secondly, there is also a need to revitalize the primary market in equity. So we require a couple of large IPOs in order to stimulate the interest among investors. Going forward, this year is going to be a busy year for the stock exchange. We have a major infrastructure development project that we have embarked on. We are doing a major upgrade to our automated trading system, the depository. We are moving into a new data center, and also we are hoping to introduce delivery versus payment system. Then also going forward, we are hoping to revamp the entire listing process to make it easier for companies to list. We are working on a single window concept where companies can deal with one unit within the exchange. Then on the investor side, we are also further improving the digitalization drive that we embarked on in September with the aim of making the market more accessible. Then we also have on our plans the introduction of a couple of new products during the course of this year. We are working on a over-the-counter market for corporate debt securities, repos, a gold-linked product to trade gold on the secondary market. We've also going to introduce stock borrowing and lending, and we're also hoping that some of the property developers will take advantage of the REITs framework, the Real Estate Investment Trust Rules framework that was gazetted in the last year, and that we hopefully will see a couple of REITs being introduced to the market. We are revamping the investor grievance procedure to make it more transparent and accountable. Then also on the regulatory front, we are expecting the new SEC Act to be passed that will also enable the demutualization of the stock exchange.
Now, headline inflation increased marginally to 4.2% in December 2020 from 4.1% in November. The Colombo Consumer Price Index data was released last evening by the central bank. The 0.1% increase in inflation in December is attributed to monthly increase of prices of items in both food and non-food categories.
The data released by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka indicates that food inflation year-on-year decreased to 9.2% in December 2020 from 10.3% in November 2020. However, non-food inflation increased to 2% in December last year from 1.6% in November. The change in the Colombo Consumer Price Index measured on an annual average basis remained unchanged at 4.6% in December 2020 for the third consecutive month. Meanwhile, monthly change of CCPI was recorded at 0.66% in December 2020, owing to price increases observed in items of both food and non-food categories. Moreover, monthly changes of food and non-food categories were recorded at 0.45% and 0.22% respectively in December. Accordingly, within the food category, prices of coconut, vegetables and rice increased in the month. In the meantime, prices of items in the non-food category recorded an increase during December, mainly due to price increases observed in the transport and health subcategories. The year-on-year core inflation, which reflects the underlying inflation in the economy, increased to 3.5% in December 2020 from 3% in November. However, annual average core inflation declined marginally to 3.1% in December from 3.2% in November 2020.
The People's Bank dispels recent negative comments which say that state banks are facing difficulties in conducting their international and trade-related banking activities. The bank says that those comments are politically motivated and that not a single letter of credit facility issued by the bank has been refused by any international bank to date. In a statement, the bank added that the People's Bank remains the preferred bank for international trade and foreign currency funding facilities in Sri Lanka by the international banking community. It went on to say that the People's Bank's financial stability is underscored by the fact that it has been ranked among the top 1,000 banks in the world for 2018, 2019 and 2020 by the Banker magazine. The bank says it possesses an impressive 2.3 trillion rupee asset base with over 1.8 trillion rupee in customer deposits, which is indicative of the trust and confidence it enjoys within the country. The US dollar selling rate settled at 189 rupees and 80 cents today after closing at 189 rupees and 18 cents yesterday. Now with that, let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. We'll see you shortly. Stay with us. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. All the best for the new year. Bye-bye.